Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if we have much of an agenda, but we probably need to get moving on it. Mr. Ford, well, okay, let's just. I talked with Mr. Ford today and I ran over some names. There are that we could probably appoint at our commission meeting to move forward on a home rule charter committee. And we've had some difficulty. Some people eventually declined, and we might still have one or two that will decline down the road. And I tried to balance it with rural and our city population, which is probably 3/4 or more of our voting population. So what I'm looking at here are the names I'm going to suggest to appoint to this committee are Catherine Kester, Government Relations at Xcel Energy, Brandon Bombach, who you all know, Dave Korsmo from the EDC at Northwood, Barry Wilford from the Chamber, Bob Grease from the Water Board. And Bob's a very pragmatic guy. He's excellent. Kyle Kwame from the City Council. And then I'm also considering appointing Commissioner Ross and myself to it.
That's good and good. Okay.
So we'd be the vice chair and chairman. Pardon me?
I said you couldn't be on the.
I'm not sure. Can you?
No, I think we can
Commissioners
unmute
can be on it.
Well,
So Cass County, their commission chair and vice chair was on theirs. Ramsey County, their commission chair and their vice chair was on theirs as well. In fact, the Ramsey County commission chair chaired their home rule. It was initially at the end, and Ms. Longstead, you kicked me out of the table wrong, but it was initially thought commissions couldn't, but we looked into it a little more.
and I'm fine with having Ms. Wamstead look into it a little bit. I won't put her on the spot right now, but
Okay.
that'd be fine for her to look into it. But I think that would provide some direction, and the other counties have done it. And I think it would probably expedite this process, which we certainly need. I'm still really skeptical that this will make the June ballot. Just, we might get the charter done in time, but I don't think you're going to have enough of an education process from what I've heard out in the community in that short period of time. But there's a skepticism that the only real reason that we're doing this is to impose a sales tax, which would be an additional tax. And I've heard that anywhere from city council to people on the street that I know. So, and others have told me the same on this committee, so run this commission. So that's where I'm at on that. I'll throw it out to anybody else that wants to talk.
You have 8 members that you want to appoint?
I think there's 8 on there. And initially I was going to appoint 5 to 7, or I think 5 to 7, but I decided that 8 would be fine because we may still have 1 or 2 that may back out here in the end. And that's, after the holidays here, you don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have COVID issues. People have various family issues. There were a couple of people I wanted to have on there that would have been great, but they are headed for Arizona. We all know Bill Lee. He would have been willing, but he's gone. So,
Mr. Chair, if I talked to a lot of these folks on the list, And I'd say the most common concern, not showstopper, but concern was the June timeline. They were concerned that was too tight of a turnaround. It's the commission's decision, of course. One thought is, you know, the commission can start when it wants. It doesn't have to set the election date yet, you know, but I believe any charter, if you're aiming for June, Ms. Nelson would need that probably April 1st, and then early voting and absentee voting starts. So really you'd have January, February, March to really get out there and start telling the citizens what you're trying to accomplish.
If the charter is doable, I think the education process is not.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
We talked earlier about the idea that if it's a primary election, then people who voted in the primary are there because they want to be voting. And it's not just a, okay, it's a big general election, I'll go. So they specifically go there. But I think in the climate that we're in now, our chances, I think, are better in a general election. I think you're going to have people who are voting in primaries who are just focused on one thing, and they will simply vote no if they're voting on something they haven't paid attention to. They'll be voting for their other things, such as the people they want on the ballot. I don't think they'll give much attention to this thing. I initially thought the primary was where we should be with our voting. I think that the general election will have a better chance to get people educated. That's just my thought on, based on the present state of primary elections. So that's my thought. And I also believe, I don't know how, we're gonna all have to participate and go to whatever it's Lions, Rotaries, all these places to talk to people. And man, that's a short turnaround. When for me personally, for one, that's all. That limited time that we'll do that. And I'd like to be able to do it.
Well, I think we have to be a little open-minded and we'll have to look at where we're at when we come into January and February. You know, if we look at Europe and the East Coast right now with COVID, there's going to be problems with meetings, any groups of people getting together. That's probably not going to be happening, or not in significant numbers. And so that limits our ability to meet with those people, or even our ability to go out, some of us. But I think if we're flexible, we can do it. I tend to disagree with Commissioner Ing, and I think the history says that to educate people, and normally the primary is going to have your highest number of educated voters on issues, not educated, but relative to issues. But I think you balance that out with the fact that I don't know that we are going to be ready in time for the primary, and so maybe the general does. It's going to be harder for us, but we'll have to work harder, but it's probably more doable. Cass, if I remember right, passed theirs in the general election.
Yes, that's correct.
But they had I'm not sure how they, part of it was, I think, the diversion plan, although that wasn't on there right away, but that would have been part of it. Mr. Lund, we're pretty informal. Come on up here. You just want a signature and I'll look
Randy
at it.
Richards still thinks he works in our office. How many years has it been? Commissioner, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Welcome to the Administrative Services Committee.
Yeah.
Thank Are there any questions I could answer?
Just turn around, smile if you can.
Do you know what board you just got appointed?
That happens when you miss a meeting.
You do need like 100 signatures.
25?
You were kidding me.
25, I thought. Is there more than
Oh,
25?
yeah, but I thought you were kidding me.
Oh.
Okay, proceed. He needs my signature 25 times. Whoever wants to. Diane, do you have?
I don't have, I think I had voiced that I wanted to go to the primary, to have it on the primary, but I don't have a problem going beyond that and going, I recognize that the obstacles that we're gonna have or bump into, and you know, but I don't have a problem going to the general, so I mean, either way, but that was just my preference.
If everything clicks, you know,
Huh?
and if everything
And
clicks,
it's
and we
not
can
to say
decide
that
by April.
it may not,
Go
you
for it.
know, I mean, who
Never know.
knows? So, but,
Nice.
I'm glad to hear that there's a possibility that commissioners can be on this committee as well. I think that that's important. And for me, as far as being out in the public and, you know, being able to speak to this, I don't have a problem with that. My problem with it is that, and I'm not complaining, so I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that, but like when a couple of you have conversations with say Cass or any of the other counties that have done this, you know, and so those conversations, a lot of things come out during that and you have opportunities to ask questions and things like that. And so those of us that aren't involved in those, we know nothing. And so, you know, so if I'm out in the public trying to promote this, and somebody asks a question, I don't want to have to go, I don't know. You know, so I'm just thinking that if, and I know it would probably be a special meeting, but so what? You know, I mean, we can do that
Yeah.
by Zoom and things like that for those that can't make it. But that's how I learn, is when I'm out and I'm hearing people ask questions or I have the ability to ask questions, you know, and I learned from all of you, I learned from the public, I learned from everybody. I mean, so to me, that's really important going forward. If you know, if I'm going to be a good advocate for this, you know, I have to have information, and I'm not going to get that here, you know, in our meetings or whatever. I want details, and so I just wanted to put that out there because that's you know, otherwise I might just sit like a bump because.
Well, I think that's a really good idea because we could have just, it don't always have to be a special meeting, I suppose, but it could be easily done by Zoom and just talk about what's come up in the last week or 10 days.
Well, I'd like
Any
to
of
hear
us.
what Cass ran into,
Yeah,
or
me
to
too.
be able to ask some questions, or any other of the counties or cities, whoever has done this.
The problem with Cass, and I think we probably relayed almost everything we knew that we learned from Cass. We didn't learn as much as we thought because the Cass County Administrator was not there at the time of this election. He just sort of put what he knew together. So you know, what we knew is they ran it twice. It was a failure the first time. The second time it was during a general election. They won it. And they ran it in order down the road so that they could give some money on the diversion, sales tax on the diversion. But generally, I mean, it was a cordial meeting, but I didn't get the information I thought I would. So,
I think the biggest takeaway, and I'll own that one, Commissioner Knopf, I put that one together pretty quickly. The major takeaway there was they tied it to a goal, which was their flood diversion. Much like, and the commission is similarly doing that now with the correctional center and the juvenile detention. So that was, I think, Commissioner Falk, I don't, Ms. Wamsett and Ms. Nelson were there too, but that was my biggest takeaway, was they tied it to a goal. This is why we need it.
yeah, I think, although when the charter passed, the home rule charter passed, the diversion wasn't part of that. The sales tax was tied to the goal of the diversion, and so that passed. But the charter alone passed freestanding. They wanted to they wanted to govern themselves or have more power of their own rather than being told what to do all the time. And so they were able to pass that. And then the sales tax was a fairly easy sell because everybody knew the diversion was going to be like $200 million or whatever it was. So that's where that came in.
And then my only other question is that, you know, outside of Mayor Brown, is there anybody that was part of all that home rule still on board at the city that we could tap into? I don't have a problem reaching out to Mayor Brown, you know, and visiting with him if you're still interested in maybe even being on that committee, I don't know if you'd be interested or not, but are there people that work for the city that went through that whole process and learned things that they could share?
Well, speaking of that, I wonder if.
I think-
But Hal was,
Against it.
Hal was on the radio when we tried to do this before,
Yeah.
and he badmouthed the county big time. I listened to it. It was, I was very disappointed, but I didn't find out until, I think it was after the fact that the city at that point was new, or they had had discussions that they too were going to be asking for an increase or something to that effect. But, I don't know why, bless his heart, Hal, he's a wonderful man, smart man. But I don't know why he would have badmouthed us so bad. And that just was a real killer for us. Plus the fact that we didn't do a lot of promoting on our own. We didn't know where to go and didn't ask.
I think what we have to keep in mind is that there's two separate groups, so to speak. Number one is the group that develops the charter, but they may not necessarily help as far as, all we need them to do is to get us off the ground. As far as educating the public, how that was done previously, et cetera, then somebody like Mayor Brown, anybody else that might have knowledge could help us on the advertising side or so, I don't know what you call it, but so I think we have to remember there's two groups there.
Public awareness.
Yeah, you're right, Commissioner Ross.
And one of the things I think we need to stress is,
And Mayor Brown's a Florida guy too, so.
Well, yeah, they have two places in Florida, but they
Yeah,
rent both
We
places
talked
out,
about Mayor
so
Brown, but
I don't know.
he's gone sometimes, but.
my question is, how did they get, Cass, for example, how did they get the charter passed, even though they weren't looking for a particular project yet? How did they convince the people of all those other benefits that we read in the list of things? But the only thing anyone seems to hear is the county just wants to increase taxes. There's a bunch of other things about the governance of the county that we need to get across to people.
We have to find an old person in Cass County because it goes back so far that I can't remember, when was it? Oh, thank you very much. Oh,
It was like 95 or
If
95.
we just did the charter without a purpose. Because it's like,
Nothing for later in
they're,
the weeds.
because, they don't, the trust, there is no trust. Anybody that's attached to government. And so to try to do a charter and get that approved without
70.
designating what our goal is, our purpose, reason for it is, because that's gonna be our focus. When we're doing our education sessions and things like that, that's the focus, it isn't so much the charter. We need that to do that, but I think that, I don't know what I think.
But I do believe that there are going to be some groups that are going to be supportive. The Chamber, Economic Development. I think that, City Council I think there have been some discussions, nothing formal. But there may be some support from some groups that maybe weren't so supportive in the past.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the mayor would be supportive.
Yes. Mr. Lund, you Googled it. I think you found the city.
1970 is when the
Thank
city of
you.
Grand Forks adopted its home rule charter, so.
Most of those people would be no longer with us probably.
Well, I don't know about that.
Thanks a lot.
Well, they're not, if they were.
Not in government.
No, but they were in government in 1970.
Yeah, very, it's a.
Yeah. So but you probably weren't in government, so those people
No,
are
well,
all probably in their 80s or 90s now.
that's true.
And I think the misconception way back when with the old home rule is it gives the governing authority the right to appoint offices. That's what I heard when I was at the sheriff's office.
But that's all changed.
I know it's all changed, but way back then, that was the, I mean, even Gordy Taylor used to talk about that. He was around 1970.
He was worried about it.
Right. You know, I heard that. I mean, it's like the state's attorney, you know, and people wanted to say and who they holds those offices.
Yeah, but, yeah. I
That's
wonder how
all
that
set by
rumor
state
got
law
started.
now.
It wasn't-
Yeah, it is. It's set by state law now, but I'm just saying that's.
Yeah.
And also concern of having control over mills and being able to continue to raise mills. That was a concern. I think there needs to be a very good flyer or some kind of informational
Exactly.
piece that talks about what it will do or what the plan is to do with the charter and what it won't do.
And part of it, you know, we don't think about it often enough because we've never had the authority, but it gives us the ability to set ordinances out in the county. The city does it all the time.
I know.
And we don't, you know, how many times have we had people here with complaints and we really just have to turn our shoulder to them and say, there's nothing we can do. And sometimes we say to the Sheriff Ross at one time and Sheriff Schneider after him, you know, is there something you can do? Well, I can go out there, but I can't enforce anything because you guys don't have any power.
We don't have authority.
Exactly. So, and that's, the city can take care of that, we can't. So that's, and we're having more and more people reside in these small, I don't know, bedroom communities or small areas out there where you have 20, 25 homes or whatever, and they start having problems, so.
Would former Commissioner Schmiesek have any insights? I don't know if
Yeah,
you,
you might,
I don't know if you worked for the city at that time, but not long after joined the city and
that's
maybe
a
would,
good point. He's
maybe
always
would
got
know
his-
someone.
He would have been city officer back then.
I don't, he did.
No,
Research said he was still in the either Army or Air Force at that time. Doing a little bit of research here while I'm listening to your conversation.
Thank you.
John
Sure.
Jacob was auditor.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
But I think started with the city not long after and might have know if anybody is around with any insights. This might be difficult.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'll leave you to it. Thank you for your signatures.
Thank
Thank you. Nice
Merry
to
Christmas.
meet you.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas, you too.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lund just jogged my memory. So when Mr. Schmusek was still on the commission, he was my commissioner. And we still keep in touch. And so this was before the pandemic. I visited with Mr. Schmusek. I believe he was a commissioner the last time county tried home rule, I believe. But he had said two things. The commission wasn't completely on the same page and they just didn't get out.
No, I believe he was still working for the
Was he?
city. I don't think he was on the, or was he on the home rule committee? I
I wanted
think he was
That's
on the
what it
home
was.
rule.
Maybe that's
committee.
what it was.
Yeah.
Was Spud Murphy around then?
Mhm.
He's pretty sharp, yeah, so.
But yeah, I mean, what you just said is true. I mean, I was on commission during that time and we didn't have hardly any discussions amongst any of us. We were just gonna do it. And, you know, I don't know where the direction and guidance came from for the committee. Were you here?
No, ma'am, I wasn't here.
So I'm not sure where that came from. And none of us got involved, you know, and so, and I don't know if at that time we could or we couldn't, but we didn't.
I don't think it would have mattered with the number of people that were against it, like you mentioned. I think it was a lost cause at that point, so. And I don't know if we should dwell on what happened back then because circumstances have changed and I think you'd have more people in favor of it right now. And I don't know what the purpose was for it back then, how many different things that they wanted to do, but we have rationale and reasons for it right now, so.
Well, it's a different landscape because we can use Facebook and Instagram, whatever we want to our clients, but you know, there's gonna be plenty of misinformation flying around. So we're going to have to understand how much information people are getting because stuff can really go quickly around the rumor mill.
Well, we were probably early, we would have been one of the early counties to pass it back then. Now we're kind of,
Yeah, aren't there 10 already?
we're behind the eight ball, so to speak. There are 10 or 12, and most of the big counties have already done it. We're kind of the one of the last not to do it, so. you know, I think to myself, and why I've said this before, every time I go to Fargo and I make a purchase down there, I know if they pay for their projects down there, and yet when they come up here, that's not the case. And the same with our, you know, we're talking about building this detention center and correctional center addition. Those people come from all over in here. So, you know, the people are traveling through here. I don't have any problem with them paying a portion. I'm paying it down in their county, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I know why we did it, the home rule charter, or we wanted it, was for sales tax for a new correctional center, because
Mm.
our jail was in jeopardy of being closed, and it's going to be shut down, and we needed to build a new jail. And so it was either home rule sales tax to pay for that jail, or property taxes.
So that had been right around the time of the flood, because the jail was built right after the flood. Or 2004, yeah. Okay. You know, they chose to pay property taxes then. I don't know if they want to do that now.
No, they don't. I mean,
Most-
the
most people-
conversations I've had with people
When you
about this
explain it.
issue is, you know, it's just the education, you know, that we don't want to raise mill levies. We don't want to raise property taxes. We want to have some sales tax so that we can start paying for some of these things. And everybody that comes into this community to shop, eat, stay in a hotel, whatever, they can help pay for this instead of the taxpayer, the property owners in Grand Forks paying the whole bill.
Well, it's
And
like,
they're all for it. I mean, they're all, when they know the facts.
Yeah.
This is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, I talk about it all the time at seniors.
but like Tom said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Like Tom said at the last meeting, I mean, or in the article, I mean, we have to do it. You know, we have to have a detention center and we need to expand the jail. And so it's either increase your property taxes or a sales tax.
Yeah.
And so what would it be? I was trying to figure it out and it's like, I think I flunked fractions in school, so don't mind me. But, so it would be, we're looking, or what we talked about is like 1/4%.
Or half.
Half a cent, half.
Okay, so
Probably
on a
decent.
$200 purchase, what are we looking at? What would it be? I never know where the zero should be.
1% would be $2, so 0.5% would be $1
Okay,
extra.
Yeah, and
Let
yeah,
everybody pay instead of the property owner.
we could do it on a 1/4 cent, but we would be paying a much longer period of time,
No,
and
we
we
need
would not
1/2 cent.
provide, yeah, I agree with you, Commissioner Ross, we would not be being able to provide any, well, we wouldn't be able, if you use sunset though, you're not, because you're gonna eliminate your property tax relief, because as soon as that comes off,
No,
we're gonna have to put the mills back on. So, and I know people like the sunset, but then they're gonna have to realize down the road, they're gonna start paying. But if it's a 1/2 cent, we can provide some property tax relief. It won't be huge, but it would be some, besides keeping those mills for that building now up there. And we might be able to squeeze some money towards some of these road projects, which are gonna be out of control, and I think Mr. West is gonna talk to us about that too, so. And we've got Mr. Axby talking about Larimore Dam problems and Fordville Dam and all kinds of other problems out there that are gonna require money. Now, hopefully they can get some water money from the state, but what are we haven't even heard about the ramp over here yet. So,
well, the highest in the state is Williston with 8% sales tax. And Valley City is 7.5, which is what we would be looking at. West Fargo is at 7.5, Castleton, Fargo.
West Fargo's thinking about imposing a sales tax. I just read that in the paper.
That article that ran in the Herald was obviously very good. And as I was picking up lunch to eat on the way here today, a farmer friend I know said hello and said, "Oh, what are you guys, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to a meeting." "What are you gonna be talking about?" "Home rule charter." And I was gonna launch into the spiel. He said, "Hey, I'm all for that. I'm behind you. That was a great article."
Buy 'em
If
lunch.
it was if it was only so easy, what?
We might have
Buy
a,
'em lunch.
might have an ethics issue there, Doug.
Oh, okay.
You know. And Sam Easter did do a nice job of that. He called it. He did a nice job, so. Okay, so anything else for the good of the order here?
Well, the names. we need to-
These are the recommendations.
Well, we'll have to bring those up, we'll bring that up at the commission meeting.
Okay.
So are we looking at any more than this or?
Well, I'd like to
different
keep it,
people?
I'd like to keep it to 8 if we can, those.
So
8.
is it worth it to try to reach out to
You have
Brown?
6, didn't you?
6 plus you and I'd be 8.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Brown,
But I thought-
Mayor Brown would be great.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
But, or former Mayor Brown, I guess. Mayor Buczynski might be, or I'll be getting a call later. No, but, former Mayor Brown would be great on there if he's available, and maybe, I think Mr. Ford reaches out to him every once in a while, maybe you could talk to him if he is, we'll add him in a heartbeat. Or he could help us down the road with education process too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I think he'd be more
Decide.
valuable.
If you don't, I will, and so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you afterwards.
I don't think getting the charter is the big problem. This group is not the problem. Our group over here for education, or what did you call it?
That's the
Bob?
key.
Public awareness or whatever, that group is the one that we have to get somebody like Mayor Brown and various other people. We have to get
Yeah.
Mr. Lund, Mr. Wilford, Mayor Buczynski, others that are in leadership around the community
Yeah.
to get on board and help support us.
Yeah,
What
I
about
see them
somebody
always.
in media?
And they usually are gonna take a neutral position, I think. You?
I said somebody in the media. I don't have a specific name for you, but we have those naysayers that are so negative. And I think at some point, they need to present things in the right light too. You know,
Well, we're never gonna convince some of them, that's.
Yeah, right.
We have to convince 51%, so.
That helps that it's majority. Rather than-
I didn't know we had any media left in town.
well, when it comes to television, that makes it hard.
Or it'd have to be somebody higher up. Would it not?
I have to be.
Because otherwise, I mean, they'd have to probably have approval for something like that.
Yeah, normally they're gonna take a neutral position. Their position is to report the news, not to make the news.
There's, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, there's many avenues. I've got rolling around in my mind. I just haven't wanted to get out in front of the commission yet, but I think when the commission makes a decision, there's lots of avenues we can explore. Happy to go over with the commission.
Now, I'll just make the comment, just because I get things out, you know me, and I can let it go. But I think that, you know, you say we have two entities, the charter, and then we have the people that are gonna do the training, but to me, putting that charter together is a real training experience in itself, and it would be nice to have that training history behind you. Who's gonna know that to educate better than somebody that's put that charter together?
Well, and I think these people are likely, we're putting their names on this list because we think they'll be favorably inclined.
Yeah, I think, and I think,
Willing to jump in at
Some are all-
some level.
I agree completely, Mr. Ing. Some or all of them, I think will, but you know, we can't say that for
No,
some.
it's not a prerequisite to being on the charter.
No,
commission, But
no,
I think we know that they will help.
now actually, they
Have
should
that
enter into it.
Conversation with them while you're doing it, so
I
that
agree.
we know that they are indeed on board and would be willing to do that if it comes to that.
They should be neutral and detached when they're at least starting it on the whole charter, so that would be good. Yep, so. Yes, you do.
Sorry, I've been waiting my turn. On the question,
You have to jump in. You have to help. You want to get it, yeah, you have to get
She's got
aggressive.
the answer. That's what I was gonna say.
on the question of whether commissioners can sit on the charter commission, I think that question did come up at an earlier meeting and I didn't have an opportunity to look at it. I don't see anything in the law that would prohibit a current commissioner from also sitting or chairing the charter commission.
Well, if Cass did it, it has to be right,
Yeah,
because they're right. on
in
it.
period, you gotta get that.
In period, yeah.
Well, that's very helpful though. I mean, how would you just get 6 or 8 people together and say, what's this all about? Where do we start?
Well, and it's good for the other volunteers that you have on there to know that, you know, it isn't all falling on their shoulders to get
That's
this
right.
through
Very
or
true.
anything like that, so.
Well, if we don't have anything more, we have another meeting at 2:30, so you want to take a little break, or
Sure.
then we'll address the rest of this at our main commission meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And that's a Zoom with the AG, is that right?
Right. And our council,
Lose money, they.
And what, hey,
and our council.
oh, our council, good. We'd like to have a balance on there.